Hi, and welcome to Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. My name is Alyssa, your host, and I'm here with the amazing Jay from Black Boy Reads. Jay, tell us more about yourself.
Hi everyone, this is Jay from Black Boys Read. I am a Louisiana native, but I'm a Texas, a Dallas Fort Worth transplant. My day job, I like to say I'm an educator by day. I work in higher education and do all the things, but then I'm also a reader by night, and get to curate this amazing book blog that I have on Bookstagram called Black_Boys Read. The whole mission and purpose of that particular blog started off by me wanting to really just talk about the things that I was reading when I got back into reading last year. It really became a mission for me to kind of push back on the notion that Black boys don't read, and I wanted to make that known that hey, Black boys, Black men. Black queer people do read and we deserve to be seen in the pages. So, since coming back to reading about a year ago, I've found some amazing authors. Um, so if you haven't started following me, please follow me. I do a lot of amazing things on there with the work that I'm reading and things that I'm recommending for everyone to check out.
Thank you so much, Jay. Both of us are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I just wanted to ask you before we hop into icebreakers, what does it mean to you to have a platform supporting queer books as well as diversity? Like, what does that mean?
So, like I said, my day job is being an educator in higher ed. Part of my research that I do and my work is around diverse voices and identities. So now, when it comes to reading, one of the things that I'm grateful for today is the people that are curating these stories. Not when I was growing up, a lot of the books that were being published with queer characters were like queer side characters, or like queer students never getting their happy endings. Same with Black people, it was what we call a deficit lens, was a lot of the things being published. So now that I'm a little bit older, and being able to see people like Julian Winters and Keith Millers, and Matthew, who are publishing these works about queer people and queer identities and queer students, not students, queer characters really getting their happy endings, are diverse people, Black kids getting Black joy, name dropping Alicia Bryant, who publishes a lot of books surrounded around YA romance, but like all of her Black characters get happy endings. And I appreciate that. And that's not so much things that were around when I was a kid. And so like in my big age that I am now, like I'm tapping a lot into YA and reading those things because they weren't available to me. So I want to make sure that when people find it, rather it's a parent maybe looking for information for not information, but books for their students, for their kid to see themselves in those books, or if it's someone my age that's looking to find something that shows themselves in the pages, like I want to be that person that can help them find their next read.
That makes me so happy. I feel like finding Black joy in literature can be difficult. We tend to either be side characters or we end up being in really traumatic situations and then just throw queer in there. And then it's like murder, trauma, SA. Like it's rare that we're just like happy. We're the main characters. We get the love story. We get the adventure. Um, Jumping into an icebreaker to lighten things up a little bit. If you could go into a fictional world and be the main character, what fictional world would you go into?
Ooh, that's a
hmm
good one.
It's the
Oh,
era of escapism. Come on, like
it
our
is. It is. And
space
I've been trying to escape since last Tuesday. So,
and
um,
you know what? Join the gang, join the crew. All right, all right. This is the like for any listeners out there who are like, I just want to clutch my pearls. You are listening to a gay person talk about books every episode. You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm reading a straight romance or whatever, like in my mind, I just swap pronouns most of the time. You know what I mean? Or like I swap the gender of the main character. Or I just embrace the story for what it is. In my mind, it's writing. Like it's words on a page. Like your brain kind of takes it to another level.
yeah.
Um, and even my favorite author is writing more queer books. So you know what I mean? Like get with the times, all right? Like,
All right.
um, it's definitely like
So,
the Star Wars-esque when you think about it. Like we're in
Yeah.
space, we have lightsabers. Why aren't there more queer people? Why aren't there more non-binary and trans people in space?
Yeah.
Like if we're on a different planet, like what's going on? You know? So yes, if you could go to a different world, in a different fictional world, and be the main character, what world would you go to?
Okay. Because where I would want to go is not is the author of that series is hot button topic. I'm gonna have to go outside of that if we're still thinking magical. I'm
Yep.
gonna say Blood at the Roots. By LaDarrion. What's his name? LaDarrion Williams. Yes, by LaDarrion Williams. I would definitely want to go in that world, and solely because it's a magical HBCU. Again, I work in higher
Mm.
ed, so that would just be like my like I could be the main character in this. But I also love Blood at the Roots, so I would definitely want to go in that world because I would just want to do magical shit all day long. So
That's
that's
so
where I would
cool.
go.
All
So
right.
what,
I've seen that book too. I heard it's really good. Is it worth the hype?
it's worth the hype. In my opinion, it's worth the hype.
Nope.
You know, other people say other things about it, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. I devoured it. It deserves all the hype that it's getting. But yeah,
Mm,
you know, I'm
okay.
excited for the day to come
All
out.
right. Just out of curiosity, let me see if I'm catching the drift. The original choice you were gonna make, was it the forbidden? Was it the taboo? J.K. Rowling, whatever you want to call it, kind of Hogwarts land? Is that what you were originally
Yeah,
thinking you wanted to go?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what are your
I grew up from that era, so
I also grew up on that era. There was no judgment. There is no judgment. I know there are some people in the bookish community who separate the artist from the art in this situation, and there is some
yeah.
people who protect her. What are your thoughts about magic, about Black people in literature, about wizards? Do you separate the artist from the art in the situation with J.K. Rowling and Hogwarts? Or are you 100% like, I'm not going to Universal, I'm not with the books anymore, I won't watch the movies? Like, how do you feel about that?
I will say it's hard for me because
Hmm.
again, I do a lot of this advocacy work. But then also too, I grew up on Harry Potter, and
Absolutely.
it was, and is a big part of my life. I'm of the notion that I really wish she would just shut the hell up and give Warner Brothers, um, the rights to the whole thing, but it's very hard. Like I still have a lot of my Harry Potter stuff. I have a chest with all the hardbacks.
Mm.
I before all of this blew up, I actually have all the movies on my Apple TV. Like I'm a very big since it's already pre-purchased, I definitely do go back and watch them. I don't try to give her new streams on like any of the streaming platforms. I have it barred already, so it's in my library. I think it's just hard to separate the artist from the work
Yeah.
because that is their body. That at the end of the day, that is their body of literature, that's their body of work. And because I am a part of the community,
Mm.
but also too, I have friends and even students who are trans identifying and family members who are trans identifying. It's hard for me to say like, yay, let me separate this artist, but also too, I'm not a rereader, so a
Mm.
lot of my things with Harry Potter is also too that was just a big part of me at the end. But it's not something that's just like I'm gonna go pick up and read again because I want to. So that's kind of where I kind of draw my line is that it was a thing. It's a big part of why I became a reader, why I love to read. But also too, I have to stay in solidarity with my community. So she gets no new streams, no new purchases from Jay. Um, because that's just, that's just that. That's just what it is.
I totally understand. I do think that there's also the elephant in the room where like the whole Hermione situation where like Hermione was black after the books came. She's like, oh, she was actually black. And I'm like, from what I remember in the books, I don't remember her, like, but her hair was curly. So obviously I'm like, well, a lot of people have curly hair. Also the lack of queer representation with wizards and the mudblood situation being a metaphor for race. It was just a lot of muddy waters.
Also too, was a lot of muddy waters, but then also I feel like a lot of backtrack things to say like Dumbledore was gay.
I did hear
Nothing
that.
about it being in the book. And I mean, and it presents itself in a lot of the more recent um things when it comes to Fantastic Beats.
Hmm.
But it's one of those things where, oh, he was gay. Well, that never showed up in the pages. That never showed up in the movies.
Yeah.
That never showed up in the pages. So are you doing this because of backlash, or are you doing this because this is what you actually intended to do in the beginning?
Hmm.
Um, that's always a real interesting thing when people try to backtrack because of things that they find themselves in.
I agree.
Um, so yeah,
No, I was also just curious because personally for me, if you're not with the LGBTQIA community, our community is all of us. You don't get to pick one group and be like, I only support y'all. Like, you support all of us. It's the same thing with like feminism. You can't pick, I only support this group of women. You support all of us, all
yeah,
of us. So even though I love the Wizarding World, I also grew up on the Wizarding World. It would have been nice growing up to see a black wizard who isn't all the way in the back. It
yeah.
would have been nice to see Hispanic wizards, Asian wizards, queer wizards, trans, non-binary, two-spirit. We just didn't, and
We didn't.
to
And like
assume,
with the movies, it was like y'all made a casting call, but was
hmm,
that person was Dean? Was it? I think it was Dean that was the black character. Like, was
yeah,
that actually intent, or was that just y'all way of saying like we kind of have creative flow in this, and we're gonna just put this random black character in here,
hmm,
um, because
we
why
have a
not? Let's
quota.
do it.
Yeah,
Let's
like
do
we gotta have one. Like we gotta have one. I just think that there's that element of it. And now that there's more books coming out with fantasy with people of color, um, we're on the cover of the book. We're in the TV series of the Interview with the Vampire. Finally
Yeah.
having, Louis is black, and he's just as sexy and alluring and vulnerable and strong. Um, and queer, like super, super, super gay, it's not, it's fun and it's empowering to finally see us in fantasy. Another book that if I had to be transported, it's actually not a fictional world, but it's definitely gay and we love to see it. Is S.T. Gibson's An Education in Malice, which is the Carmilla retelling that's like super, super gay. um I just think it's so interesting whenever you see vampires in literature and they're so ancient and they're so old and then they end up being black or they end up being Hispanic or Arabian and you're just like, "Oh my God, they're not white. Oh my God." But it also makes you realize moments like Twilight. Looking back and you finally see a black, vampire, but it's in the fourth film, or you see a black vampire, it's a new moon, he gets ripped apart, by the third book. Like he just took a evil turn at the end.
Well,
um
also too, remember Stephanie Myers did say that like black people cannot be vampires.
she said that?
So
Oh, I did not
that
know
was
that.
that was a thing because the
Oh,
melanin, the venom would eat at the melanin in their skin,
that's ins
which is
oh,
why in the few movies that we do see, which I was always curious as to why they were so not ashy looking,
I
but
know what you're
very white.
saying.
If you think
Yeah.
about the black vampires that
Ooh,
we've seen in the movies, they were very, very not not melanated enough, in my opinion. But
it's
hey,
saying ashy, it's saying washed out, it's saying the directors did not know what to do with all the chocolatey goodness and all the lush beautiful looks. What was his name? Oh my gosh. He was in New Moon and he had like orange eyes and he was in love with the
I know who you're
redhead.
talking about, and I can't think.
I don't remember his name either, but I remember in New Moon when I was sitting in the theater. This was an intense moment because I read the book, so I should have. In theory, you should be prepared. I remember watching the film in theaters, thinking, finally, a black vampire. Okay, he's taking a dark turn. Maybe it's gonna be like the Vampire Diaries, where he becomes like a villain. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be complex, and he just gets ripped apart by the wolves. Don't even
Yeah.
get me started on the wolves. Don't get me started on the wolves. Do not get me started. Um, Indigenous people as well were just treated like tools in this
Yeah.
fantasy world. They're only useful when Bella, the white woman, needs help.
Needed help.
Our only
Yeah.
purpose is to protect this woman.
And the quote it was that they shred their melanin in order to become beautiful.
Oh my
Was
God.
a background check to see if I was
Jay,
correct. But girl,
Jay, you're dropping truth bombs. I won't even lie to you. I did not know that. And now I'm sitting here, listeners, I get it. We need to escape. So sometimes we watch movies and shows and things that has some toxicity, you know what I mean? But you're just trying to escape, right? But if you know that there's a toxic undertone to the author, it's that It's that division where it's like, do you watch the movie, but you're not a fan of Stephanie Meyer? Or do you avoid the movies and let go of this nostalgia and your past with it and find something new to find comfort in? There's a lot of movies and shows out there.
And I'm not
You know
gonna
what I
lie,
mean?
that's why I appreciate LaDarrion for bringing blood at the roots
Mhm.
to the forefront, because that gives us something to say, okay, well, J.K. Rowling is who she is, and she's not going to
I hear
change, and
you.
is to do what she wants to do. So
Yeah.
where can I do now that I can no longer go back to the nostalgic days of this? So I
Yep.
appreciate it as much as some might not have liked it. I'm one of the ones that said I enjoyed this. This was very good. This is what we need, and we need to see ourselves in these places that we don't normally see ourselves presented at. So I'm excited for book number two that comes out next year. So um
I'm excited as
I
well. I cannot wait to get that book. I saw it in the bookstore and I was like, "Oh, the budget will not allow." But I'm very excited to get that book because like I was reading through it and I was like, "Man, in this recession, in this economy, but when I can afford to support a black business or I can afford to support a women-owned business or get a book that I've had my eye on by a black author, your girl's gonna get it. Your girl's
yeah.
gonna get it. You know what I mean? It's still technically my birthday month, y'all. So like I'm looking forward to reading it. Also seeing black main characters in horror has been incredibly refreshing. Has been incredibly refreshing, y'all.
I've been
Listen.
getting tapping into the horror lately. Shout out to my friends at whose books. There was a book club that the owner Claudia does here, and we read House of Bone and Rain.
Ooh.
Um, and that was the first like horror book I stepped into. And like now that I'm there, like I've been reading horror, and I'm like, girl.
Yes.
So I
Listen, if you
am.
ever want those horror book recommendations with black main characters, maybe we should do another episode together because you know what I mean? I already want you back. I'm sure the listeners want you back. I have a few books that have already popped into my mind, into my dome. Even though October has passed, it's always a good season for black people who survive horror. And listen, even
Always.
if we're the villains, I don't give a damn. Even if we are the villains, okay? But did we serve? Did you eat? Were you fed?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, okay.
Good. Okay with
Okay.
being a good villain. I'm okay. I love me a good villain. I
Listen.
love me.
But are you good at it? Are you good at it? You know what I mean? I'm just
Girl.
are you good at it? I'm okay as long as the black main character, if we are gonna take a villain, kind of movement, I need it to make sense and I need it to kind of draw you deeper into the story because sometimes I feel like you kind of get caught in the middle where you're like, it started off real good. Now we're in the middle and it's kind of you're just describing your evil plot, you know? I need the villain to just be evil and be amazing and be proud of who you are. Like I don't think it should be trying to resolve the evilness. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I don't need the white savior either. Oh, who said that? I listen,
Another topic for another
listen. That's another
day.
that's another day. That's another day. But that's another day. But all I'm gonna say is that pulls you back even to Twilight. Even to Twilight. Who saves Bella? Who saves Bella?
Every time.
Who saves
Every
her
time.
for and who's he saving her from? Who's he saving her from? Okay. Jacob's horrible A, B, and C. I have it's funny. Twilight is one of the most infamous books that comes up in this podcast the most. In a previous episode, with an author who is part of a horror indigenous short story collection, Don't Whistle in the Dark, the author brought up how Twilight connects a lot to abusive relationships, and it reminded her a lot of an abusive relationship via Edward and Bella. I look back now, and it's if you rewatch Twilight, if you really look at the story, the way
Mhm.
Jacob is painted and the way the positions they put this person, it just broke my heart how they just put him in every situation where he was just meant he was sweet and then he was horrible. And then with the whole baby imprinting thing, it just gets like it gets to a point where he's unredeemable or the
Yeah.
audience feels uncomfortable. So that's why finding books now, like the ones you're reading and you're reviewing, it shows people that like people of color, especially black main characters, we are not always inherently flawed. We don't have
Yeah.
dark paths and stories and trauma, and like our love stories can be sweet and bubbly just as much as anybody else's. Um, which brings me to a book that you actually posted on social media about, and it pulled me in. I have been in that nonfiction girly era. I've really been vibing with that nonfiction recently. I thought nonfiction was boring. I admit it. I admit it. I thought it was boring as hell. I thought it was giving dry. It was giving
Right.
dry. But you
Right.
recommended Flamboyance. It was on Instagram. Yes, you recommended Flamboyance. And you did a beautiful review on it. And I just want to hear you talk about it. Like, tell me more about why you read this book.
So again, I love them. Their work is amazing. So that was one of the reasons. What initially drew me in, so I am an historian by undergraduate trade. So my undergraduate degree is in history. Um, so we talk a lot about, I talk a lot about the Harlem Renaissance when I think about just Black history and cultural history with Black folks. But again, we never hear enough about um the queer folks at that time. So Alan Locke actually in here is talked a little bit about. So Alan Locke is actually one of my fraternity brothers. I'm a
Wow.
member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We actually have our undergraduate honor society named after him. So it was great to hear a little bit more about Alan's story because we don't ever talk about Alan in this light. Um, we talk about him as a scholar and never in this light. But also too, a lot of my favorites were in here.
Mm.
Langston Hughes when I mean I'm a poetry girly in a way. I love Langston Hughes. When I used to put quotes in my signature line at work, it was always a Langston Hughes poem. Um, James Baldwin is another one of my faves. And we don't talk about James in this one. As he's mentioned a little bit, but he's not really talked about.
I recall.
But James is James Baldwin is one of my favorites. That we know openly was very, openly queer about their identity and the books that they wrote as well. So that's what drew me in, was just wanting to know a little bit more about the queer people
Mm.
within the Harlem Renaissance. There were some names that I didn't know about. There were some I did. Um, so yeah, and it was just sad that um some of them didn't end up getting like a lot of them got their flowers when they're dead. So I appreciated them for giving them the voice here in this book. Um, because they really deserve their stories to be told in a different light.
I honestly felt like one of the quotes, it's near the end of the book, but it hit really hard and I wanted to share it. I call them flamboyants. Their lives were full of color, wisdom, and experiences that shine brightly beyond the confines of their time. And in this podcast, I like to share quotes from the books because I feel like at times people get caught up in feeling overwhelmed. They don't want to be scared. But in this book, I felt like you should, like, especially during this time, we're afraid of what's going to happen to marginalized communities, anyone who's not white, anyone who's not, going by the status quo of what people may think. You know what I mean? If you don't fit in this box, we're all afraid. You know what I mean? We all just want to live a happy, full life. Flamboyance is one of those books that it almost gave me the strength and the empowerment to look at life in a brighter way. These people, what I love about what George M. Johnson writes about is they were flawed. Like in this book, he does talk about how some of these people made, they weren't welcoming to everyone in the community, how some of these people made massive mistakes. Historically, you look back, you're like, oh my God, like you made choices that hurt people and you were aware of that to protect yourself. I don't want to spoil who I'm referring to in case people do end up reading this book. It's so crazy. How
Yeah.
can you spoil nonfiction? You can. Like people's lives they create stories. They are history. Um, it's one of those things where this is a history, you've attended college. I'm currently in college. But even for people who've never gone to college or who are in high school, this is almost like a secret history. We don't learn about, LGBTQIA people in history unless
Yep.
it's through social media now, which is the beauty of social media, is that we are able to learn about them. And
Yeah.
the
I
author writes
appreciate.
about that.
Yeah, I appreciate George. The first line in the introduction, my heroes were hidden from me.
I felt that.
Uh, and I was like, yes, because I mean,
100%. 100%.
Sad to say, but the first time I was introduced to James Baldwin was I was a sophomore in college. The
Wow.
time I was introduced to James Baldwin, I went all through life not knowing who James Baldwin was, the literal giant and who James Baldwin is, the person that over the last week I have quoted constantly
Mm.
to a lot of the issues and a lot of the things that I have been talking about within the bookish community, within America as a whole. I could find a quote from James Baldwin. And the fact that I wasn't introduced to James Baldwin until I got to college
Yeah.
by a woman. Let's start there. By
Wow.
who told me about James Baldwin. And I appreciate Allison Ridmeyer, Dr. Allison Ridmeyer for that one because when she introduced me to James Baldwin, that changed me forever in the amount of the things that I read because I didn't realize that that was out there. So that is something I really hope changes for a lot of people in schools that they're reading some of these literal giants who are missed because of the white literary canon.
I feel like on a lot of levels, it's one of those things where like I look at this, I don't even know how to describe it. I feel like I look at this book and I overall just feel blessed that we're able to even read it during this time. Like I'm sitting
Yeah,
here and I'm like, if this book came out, God forbid, 3 years into the future, what if it was banned? What if for some reason we weren't able to get it in bookstores, we weren't able to get it in colleges? I didn't learn about LGBTQIA poetry, about sapphic authors, about trans story. I didn't learn about any of that until I hit college. Like I
yeah,
didn't. I really thought that like the only thing I had reference to was films. Like that was pretty much it. I was like, okay, book wise, where am I gonna find stories that are written about our love stories, about our history? I don't know where to go. I don't know where to look, you know? So books like this are incredibly important. And I just feel like on top of your race and how you encounter your race, how you experience and move through the world, sexuality is a major element of who you are. And just reading these books and seeing people celebrate the sexuality, and in some cases have to hide it historically. Um, I just think it's so empowering to see how even now when things are scary, books like this encourage you to live your life to the fullest, to kind of be who you are in spite of the darkness. You can't shine unless you're in darkness. You know, this is a moment to build character. That's what this book
yeah,
really gives to all of us. And I'm
yeah,
so grateful you put it on social media because my TBR is never ending. And by reading this is by far one of my favorite books of the year, if not of all time. Like this is going with me wherever I go. And I'm so grateful, Jay, for you introducing me to this author. I had the audiobook, I got the physical copy, like you gave this gift to me and you gave this gift to all of us, you know, and I'm grateful. So, yes, James Baldwin, he shares his art, he shares his words and he did that historically, but you're sharing books, which is just as important, you know.
yeah,
Knowledge is key. You do not have to go to college. You do not have to do that in order to have a higher education. You really don't, you know.
yeah,
But this book is like a key and it opens up a door.
yeah,
And that's dangerous for some people. But for us, it's just empowering. Like there's no danger in this. This is beautiful, you know? So I'm
yeah.
so grateful we were able to talk about it. And as we dive into our closing moments, I want to hear your top 5 books of 2024.
Okay. I actually brought my stack with me.
Ooh,
So
and I whoop,
I, was-
show them.
I got to show these covers, okay?
Ah, show
So
them.
we're gonna start off with The Last Boyfriend's Rules for Revenge. Um
Cute.
very cute. How can I describe this? Very much so take kids taking on the system against don't say gay bills,
Ooh.
being revolutionary about it, but also getting revenge on their exes. Um, First Wives Club, I guess, is what we can go with.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Seven Evil Exes.
You know, they trying to get revenge. They had some crappy things happen to them. Um, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. Matthew is also getting ready to drop another book soon. He just released the
Ooh.
cover. Great author, another Southern person. He's located in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Enjoy his writing. Enjoy this book. Literally was driving back trying to finish up the arc so I could have post a review. We were coming back, I think, from Mardi Gras, and I had my brother drive my car. I was like, I need you to drive my car back home, because I need to finish this book. So yes, Last Boyfriend's Rules for Revenge is one of my faves for this year. Um, Purdy by Keith
Ooh.
F. Miller Jr. Beautiful cover. Um, this is truly authentically um Black boy healing. I will say tragedy does happen in this book. But the author does such a way of it authentic, like gay being such a normal thing,
Mm,
that's not the focus of it. It's tragedy within the community and things that are happening. But being queer is very much so normalized in this book that I enjoyed it. It brought me so much. I cried, but it brought me so much joy that the
mm.
community literally just it was just normal. So if you haven't read it, check it out. Keith, amazing, 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 amazing job with this one. Um,
These will all be listed in my notes, by the way, and on Instagram when we do post this episode. So if anybody wants to read these books, they will be in the notes of the show and on YouTube.
Okay, this one, let me tell y'all. So this is a personal favorite of mine, Jumata Mill, Wonder in the Dark. He's the author of The Black Queen. We're actually from the same state, so I think in this, I wonder if you put it in this signed copy or was it in another one? It's in my Black Queen one. He signed it to my fellow Louisiana homie, so that's my like thing with Jamal when I see him at a book festival. But Wonder in the Dark is a murder mystery. Um,
Ooh,
it's the two characters are black. There's the one main character is a straight black man. The other main character is a queer black man. They're
okay.
half brothers. Um, uh, White girl gets killed. Of course, the black guy was at the home. The straight brother was at the home. They're trying to pin the murder on him, so they spend the majority of this book trying to figure out who actually killed the white girl. Really, really good. If you haven't read anything by my friend, please check him out. The Black Queen is amazing. Wonder in the Dark was absolutely amazing. Anytime I pick up a book by him, I kid you not, 2, 3 days tops, because I am a very busy person, so it takes me a while. But 2, 3 days tops, I am done with anything that I literally put my hands on by him. Um,
Okay, that sounds really good.
we talked about this one earlier, Blood at the Roots by LaDarrion.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. If you are looking for something to crave out this Harry Potter thing that we were talking about earlier, Blood at the Roots is definitely that. I love it. Darian, you're doing amazing work out there.
Mm.
I look forward to book number 2 that's coming out next year. So definitely Blood at the Roots is one of my favorites again for this year. So far, I am doing the top 10 friends. So if you're curious to see like at the end of the year what the top 10 was, of course, these five will be here, but then there's also about five more books that I read this year that are amazing. And then I can never forget my friend Julian Winters, Prince of the Palisades. Amazing, amazing, amazing queer rep. The pink hair character
Love it.
is our queer rep here. And then our guy right here, the little flashy guy, is our prince. Very
Mm.
much slow burn, falling in love.
Okay.
All of the things, very cute. Uh, Julian is one of my lullaby authors. Always excited to read anything by him. But this one was super cute. I don't know how to rank it when it comes to the three things, the other two books that I read, because like every time Julian publishes something, like I'm like, this is my favorite one.
I
So
hear
yeah, so
you.
that's definitely last and never least, but Julian ranks high very much for me. And a lot of the work that he does. I'm excited for his next book that's coming out in January, which is his debut into adult novels. We're reading it for my book club, and I'm having an opportunity to actually sit with him in February and actually host my book club with him, and get to see
Wow.
all the things in his next release, and I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations. That sounds so exciting. As we close out this episode, I will, of course, link your Instagram below, but just so people can hear it in the last 1 minute of this episode, tell us where we can find you. Tell us more about Jay Sparkle. What makes you so amazing?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram only as of now, at Black_Voice Read. I'm there. You'll see amazing things from the work that I'm doing here in the Dallas community through my book club that I host called Beyond the Margins, where we read BIPOC authors. Super excited for actually that book club that we're having later this week. But then also all of the things there, you'll find anything. Literally, I post recommendations for Identity Month, so some Black history recs, women's history recs. I've had Asian American reps.
Ooh.
And find it all on that page and all of the things, and be looking forward to some additional things that we'll see throughout the next year.
Thank you so much, Jay, for coming to this episode. I'm so happy, and I know that we will 100% be having you back. So thank you so
Excited.
much, and thanks for listening to this episode, y'all.